Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken.
Hey, Kiernan.
Hello, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I can feel it when you're geographically closer.
I am in Brooklyn.
The world feels a little brighter, a little warmer. I feel like it's like when, two magnets are getting closer and they start to get that hum before you let them go and snap. But I'm not sure we're actually going to see each other here on this trip when you're in the United States.
No, I don't think I'm going to get up to Boston this time. And you're not coming down to NYC, or maybe.
No, well, I don't know. How long are you there? So, I guess we're jumping right. Well, no, we got it. We got to do housekeeping first, which is right. This is not the episode we promised. We've again disappointed. That's as our many reviews pouring in show. Yeah. We're again disappointing the listening audience. Now, today we're going to talk about last minute summer trip planning. And this is because we had this idea and we felt it was more urgent to get this out rather than the Paris episode we had promised.
Yes, I think people right now are doing their last minute summer planning. We just got past Memorial Day. Like, this is it, folks. If you're trying to figure out something to do in August, you gotta decide.
It's an urgent need. And I do think Memorial Day and the end of the school year is when people start going, geez, you know what? In January, we talked about planning a trip. In March, we started talking about some destinations. We still haven't booked anything. Can we scrap anything together before it's already the fall and then the holidays?
Exactly. And that's where you and I come in.
Exactly. I think we both have planned many, many last minute trips, and I think we have good tips and tricks and sort of brainstorm thought starters for people who are thinking, okay, maybe I'm not going to be able to swing that trip to Paris, though we are going to do the Paris episode next. But maybe, and you know what, I would actually suggest this might be a good summer for a last minute trip to Paris. And I'll tell you why once we get into that meat of the episode.
Did you see the video of Emmanuel Macron?
Being pushed in the face. Pretty funny joke.
Very funny.
Last night I just started. I was pressing Catherine in the face. I was saying, "Do you get the joke? Do you get the joke?" Yeah, that's such a bizarre. For anyone who didn't see it, there was this video where he seemed to have not realized that the door of the plane was being opened, so photographers were going to be ready, and it appeared his wife sort of pushed him in the face pretty violently. It didn't look like a jokey sort of push.
No, it didn't. Emmanuel.
But you know what? I like that they're just kind of out there with the animosity. I feel that the Trumps could, I would like to see a little bit more of the acrimony brought out in public.
She took him right back to his 10th grade homeroom.
So we're going to get to Paris. That's going to be the next episode. And Scout's honor, we will actually get to that. But right, before we get into the tips and tricks of last minute summer trip planning and thought starters and ideas, I want to do the Judy alert. I already tipped that you're back in the United States, but I don't have a sense of where you're going and when, and then what's post United States. So you're in Brooklyn now. How long are you doing your New York stint?
Yeah, I'm in New York, really just for a week. I'm going to see George Clooney tonight in Good Night and Good Luck.
Excellent. Oh, yeah. Fantastic.
Super
and
exciting.
Have you revisited the movie?
I have not, so I'll be going in sort of blind since the film. So
I feel like you should give it a watch. If I were going to see it, I would give it a watch first.
Yeah. Well, I like it. I think I like a little surprise, but I'm excited to see it. And then I've just been bouncing around New York, seeing friends, and it's been fun to be back in the city. And then I am off to Maryland. I'm going to be in Ocean City for about a month because I have jury duty.
That's exciting. So I love jury duty. It's an important way to be able to take a paid day off of work.
Is it paid?
I don't know. I think some places it's paid. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's not paid.
Yeah.
But also, most of the time you're just sitting there answering work emails on your iPhone anyway.
That's fair enough.
And in New York, are you seeing any other theater? And bigger question, as a former New Yorker, God, it's so hard to call you that, but as a former New Yorker, are you feeling any nostalgia, any pull to move back, put down roots in the old stomping grounds?
It's hard not to feel nostalgia. For New
that's
York.
how I feel when I'm there.
Yeah, but not anytime soon. I'm not ruling it out. But
and how about on the theater front?
No other theater, unfortunately.
I'm shocked. Really?
Yeah, it's been just like lots of dinners, poker nights, You're
not going to go see Boop, the musical, the Betty Boop musical?
I'm going to stick with Good Night and Good Luck with Mr. Clooney.
I'll say, listen, I listened to a podcast called How Was Your Week by a comedian named Julie Klausner. She's a real Broadway expert.
I know Julie. She's very funny.
Do you know Julie Klausner?
Yeah, she's been around.
Do you know her personally?
Yes. From back
I thought you might.
Yeah,
similar circles. And she had a very funny Hulu show called Difficult People.
Yeah, my buddy Cola.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, let's not dive too deep because I'm still waiting for that interview. Yes, your former acquaintance, Cola Scola. And Julie Klausner saw Boop the musical for which she got the lottery tickets and actually had a pretty darn good review of it. Made me think, okay, if this travels and I could get a cheap ticket, maybe it would be worth it. And I'll tell you what's very funny is back when I was in the BMI workshop, the musical writing workshop when I lived in New York, a friend and I even went so far as to write 2 or 3 songs for a Blondie musical. Dagwood with the big sandwiches. We thought if any old cartoon needs a musical, we already got You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. It didn't even occur to me that Boop would be the next big one.
There must be a Blondie musical.
I don't think there is. And we had a really good song about building a Dagwood sandwich.
Oh, well, folks. And we might do a whole
Here's what
episode.
I'll say. If I can dig up an old recording of the Dagwood sandwich song, we can play it on the next episode. How about that?
I think that means it's almost time to take off.
I agree. I think it's time to take off. Let's get into last minute summer trip planning.
Tell the cabin crew.
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
All right, Ryan. Well, I guess, so you're going to New York, you're doing Ocean City, and then are you heading back to South America after that?
I am. I'm headed down to Colombia and then, TBD until going to Ireland for our buddy's wedding.
And do you have any last minute summer trip planning that you're doing this year in between your larger moves?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to do some summer Colombia trips, and we are exploring those options now. Last summer I went and saw the whales.
Yeah.
So there's a whole kind of Caribbean side of Colombia that I haven't spent much time on besides that sort of long weekend, and that's where a lot of the beautiful beaches are. So some of the stuff we're talking about today, some of the strategies I'm going to be employing.
Same here. It's funny because I feel like we're in the same boat here, where we both have kind of larger travel planned on certain parts of the summer, but it's just in our blood to try to fit in as many trips as you can. And I find in the business world, usually the summer is a little bit more understanding of taking your time off, and so I've got the Alaska trip coming up in just a week, and then
a week. That is so exciting.
And we're also doing a weekend in Seattle, one of my favorite cities to visit. And we'll be bringing the kids this time. I've never done it with kids, so that should be exciting to report on. And then
you have to let me know if Charlie likes it.
I will be sure to let you know. Yeah. We're going to seek out a couple. There's a couple of attractions. There's so you can do a Boeing airplane factory tour.
Careful.
Which I've already done that. We're not going to do that because it's not really a kid tour, but there is a museum of flight that is adjacent that is supposed to be incredible. All these historic planes. It sounds very, very interesting. So I'm sure we're going to fit that in. And then in August, my mother and I are taking a trip to London, which will be great. I haven't been back to London after having lived there and used to visit all the time. And it'll be nice to be back there. I'm sure I'll have a big nostalgia hit there. But I am wondering, is there room for just one more family trip in there? And then we're going to have to start talking about whether we're going to get one on the books for the fall, you and me.
It's true. We got to figure that out.
So When it comes to, I mean, one of the great frustrations, one of the most limiting factors on last minute trips is choosing the destination, right? Because I think when you're first conceiving of a trip, you're often thinking of the big landmark places, many of which you got to book, or at least you think you have to book a year out. You know, these are the top national parks, the top cities around, even though in the world of dynamic pricing, you never really know where your flights, your hotels, your rental cars are going to end up. Sometimes you actually benefit by waiting to the last minute. I have a good friend who, when he's approaching an airport, he'll always look while the plane is taxiing for rental car deals, because he knows that car companies that are sitting a bunch on their lot will cut their prices hugely. And if he's already booked something, he'll cancel it and switch to the much cheaper option. A great travel hack.
The cancellation hack. I love it. Yeah.
It's very good. And so what my first bit of guidance that I want to say is, while you may think of those major destinations, the number one place where it's not going to disappoint that I would recommend is think about on the national park and the nature front, going to the sort of tier 2 or less famous national parks. I mean, we have a lot of national parks in this country, and yes, everybody wants to go to the Yellowstones, the glaciers, the Yosemites, but I've been to a ton of these smaller national parks, often in the course of like a road trip where you hit a big one, you hit a little one, and they are so extraordinary, and you're not fighting the crowds to book the hotel rooms, to book rental cars, that you are at the bigger parks. And so I have a couple that just quickly come to mind that are places you could definitely get. You could go camping. You could book a glamp site at something like Under Canvas. You could definitely get an Airbnb, or you could find hotels and motels that still have availability near these, because they are the less popular parks. So North Cascades in Washington, beautiful mountainous region, tons of hiking, gorgeous scenery. Isle Royale in Michigan. This is one of the least visited parks, because you actually have to get to sort of way out there in Michigan and then hop on a ferry and go to the island. It is an island where you have lots of good hiking and kayaking around, canoeing around. The Great Sand Dunes in Colorado. This is a fascinating park Catherine and I hit, where the major things to do besides hiking the dunes is you rent these sand sleds that you have to wax the bottom of them, and then you climb up and you sled down these huge dunes like you're on snow, but you're actually on sand. I mean, where else are you going to do that?
I remember so vividly you telling me about this on the episode. So cool.
In that same trip, we actually tied it to another park I'd recommend, which is Mesa Verde National Park. And Mesa Verde is where there's it's one of the few national parks where there are historic cultural sites preserved inside, and these are the cliff dwellings that some of which are easily visitable, some of which are more obscure tours that you can book. But again, it's not one of those blockbuster parks that everybody's going to be hitting. So you should be able to find your way in. And then just two more that I can't resist. The Badlands in South Dakota. This is easily combined with a trip to Rapid City, South Dakota, where you could visit all the statues of the presidents. We have an old episode where we talked to one of the sculptors that actually makes the new presidential statues. And you could visit that, Mount Rushmore, and then hit Badlands National Park, which is these really evocative they're not dunes. They're sort of these hills that you can see the striations in the rock. And so there's a great sense of the geological history of the place. And it was actually a very active place for dinosaur hunting and for mammoth skeletons. So there's historic archaeological sites that you can also visit nearby. And then finally, if you're thinking of, oh God, I wish we could go to Zion in Utah, there is a secondary park that is closer to Arches called Canyonlands in Utah. Canyonlands. And to me, Canyonlands is every bit as extraordinary as the Grand Canyon. And it's so humongous. I mean, my friends and I hiked there for a day. We hardly saw another soul. And I just couldn't wrap my head around, where is everybody? We should all be visiting this place.
I don't even know if I've heard of that one. That's amazing.
That's exactly the point. Is there's great treasures that have been preserved that you can seek out and build a whole week around, especially if you're in the mood to get out to nature and to lose your cell phone signal.
So you're also a big proponent, though, of state parks.
Yeah. So, national parks are the ones that I think get a lot of the top billing, but the whole park system, the national and the state side, we have all these designations, national monuments. You might have heard a lot in the past few years, ever since Obama designated it Bear Ears in Utah, which has been going kind of back and forth in ping-ponging with the changing administrations about how big it is, how protected it is. But, well on its way to potentially being a national park. There's national seashores, national military parks, that are things like the Gettysburg Battlefield, national historic parks. Right by Boston, we have one called the Minuteman Trail. National recreation areas. There's some great ones of these just outside Las Vegas. National parkways like the Blue Ridge Parkway. All of these places have great nature to see, even though they don't have that top billing as national parks. And as you say, there are state parks that are often adjacent to national parks that preserve the same history. I mean, just because they're technically outside the line on the map, the nature and the piece is the same. And I would recommend, if you're searching for some state parks that might be worth a whole trip, we have an old interview with a journalist named Peter Kajuwinski, who wrote a couple of articles for the New York Times that was spotlighting some of these state parks. And I noticed that the Times even revisited this topic, saying state parks that you could visit that are worthy of national park recognition. Said that basically, if nobody told you what the sign said, you'd think you were in them. So I'll put a link in there. State park doesn't sound as sexy, but the nature can be just as good.
And next door.
And you will certainly be able to get accommodations. And if you're opening to camping, and right, you remember every once in a while we're approached by like an RV dealer who keeps telling us that we could get a comped RV. And I dream of us doing this road trip to state parks across the West.
Yes, you do. And we might take that RV person up on it one day. So keep those emails coming.
And right, I actually don't know. Are you one of these point obsessives? Like, do you use your credit card points to book travel?
Basically, at the end of the year, I just kind of like book whatever's left with my remaining points.
Okay. And do you have loyalty? I know you're a Delta flight,
Delta.
but do you have any loyalty within the credit card game?
Not really, no.
So for me and Catherine, we're Chase, and we've doubled down on the travel points on Chase, and we still are benefiting from the lack of travel inside COVID. So we've built up a bank there. And what I would say is for those who aren't point obsessives, and I am not a point obsessive. It doesn't sound like you're a point obsessive either. There are a lot of deals and games you can play with these points. And in fact, we're going to have an interview, I would say probably in about 6 weeks, with a points expert who I recently talked to, who was helping me navigate and try to get the best deal on some flights. And
not the points expert.
He's not the points guy. He's not the points guy. I would call him the points man. Okay, yeah. There's the points guy. This is the points man. And he was teaching me all these tips and tricks about, you transfer from the Chase loyalty program to the British Airways. And once you're in the British Airways, you can travel to Qatar. And if you're in Qatar, you can book American Airline. I mean, it was pretty amazing, the web of loyalty programs that you have. And honestly, it's very time consuming, though there's a lot of good deals out there to get. But my main tip here is, if you don't closely follow your credit card and your loyalty points, if you have been flying fairly frequently, putting in your frequent flyer number across the different airlines that you book on, and if you have points that you can redeem to travel on your credit card, you may well have a good library there that you can start checking out. And this is the time of year, and especially within the international circumstances right now, where you can actually get some really, really great deals on flights. So if you're a bit agnostic about where you're going, follow the deal and cash in those credit card points.
Yeah, like if you log into the the Capital One portal and you just see the special kind of exclusive new deals. They've always got something that they're sponsoring that they're giving some sort of obscene package away for. So if you don't really care if you're going to Aruba,
well, and that actually leads to why we're seeing really great deals right now, right at this time of year. And it's because with the current climate around American politics and potentially tariffs, we're seeing tourism to the United States from abroad really taking a hit. And so many of the airlines and hotel groups are trying to seek passengers to fly out of the US to international destinations. So they're trying to fill up these flights. And as a result, they're cutting these last minute deals. So that's what, if you've got a little flexibility on where you want to go and when, be watching these deal sites very, very closely. Sign up for their email prompts and really open yourself to, okay, I know I have Chase points. I'm going to log in and look for the next 2 weeks every day what deals are opening up and closing, because you're really seeing pretty amazing ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some great tools that you can use to track. Google Flights and Skyscanner both have tools that are called the Explore or the Everywhere tool, where you basically search from your home airport with the dates, and it gives you a list of all the cheapest flights. And you can sort of look at that every day and kind of see if there is a good flight that pops up that might take you to a destination. And then another trick that I like that we sort of touched on earlier is what I call the cancellation trick. And this is if you see a hotel price or an Airbnb and there's a free cancellation until X date, go ahead and book that. And then you can still monitor for other opportunities up until that cancellation day. And I've even gone back to the same hotel and edited my purchase for the same room, and we're able to book it down like $15 a night. So always just sort of play around with those cancellation policies. Airbnb, hotel, the car policy we talked about earlier to kind of look for deals.
If you're doing that though, you've got to be super organized, because if you miss that cutoff date, you are stuck. I know I get very nervous when I try to play this game myself. I'm always nervous that there's tiny text at the bottom of the booking that sure you can cancel, but you have to be logging in and an IP address from Scotland.
That is totally fair. But if you're somebody who just is using like hotels.com a lot and you just know the interface, like it's just super simple. But if it was some random, there's all these random sites that you've never bought anything on, I don't think I would trust whatever that policy was.
Well, they're also getting much more sophisticated. The layers that these hotel discount sites are hiding fees on have gotten extraordinary. I was booking a last minute hotel in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and the resort fees, which virtually doubled the price.
And what is the resort? Most of these places, barely have a pool.
Yeah, it's full of tricks. And in fact, I got really lucky because I stayed at a hotel that was a pretty nice hotel. And when I got back the first day, I noticed that there had been no housekeeping, and I hadn't put out a sign that said like "Do not disturb" or anything. Yeah. So when I checked out, I said, "Do you guys not do service within the rooms each day?" And he said, "Oh, when you checked in, they should have told you. You have to ask for it every day."
Yeah, that's.
And so I just said to him, "Well, nobody told me that." And he said, "Okay, I'll just waive your resort fees." I was like, "Great, this is great," because I didn't need the service anyway. So that actually saved me a few dollars. But you got to search for the fine print, because they are getting very sophisticated at hiding all these little caveats.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. The resort fee thing, it just sticks in my craw.
I'm with you. I'm anti-resort fees. And the final tip that I have for those who are just here in June starting to plan for a summer vacation, it actually kind of picks up on your hotel cancellation policy idea, which is start your hotel planning with looking for an extraordinary place to stay. And this is particularly good for families. I obviously, I have a 3-year-old, I have a 5-year-old. We're still very much like captive to the nap schedule. And so we know we're going to be spending a fair amount of time in the hotel or the Airbnb or the VRBO that we book. And so why not book a really extraordinary place, a cool historic place, a tree house, an A-frame, really look for neat places. And I'll say that Travel and Leisure, all the major travel sites out there, Condé Nast Traveler, they're all doing these interesting lists these days of, the coolest Airbnb in every state. And, I find them pretty compelling. A few years ago, we booked a cottage in like middle of nowhere, Maine, called Beals Island, very much a lobster fisherman community. And it was a house that these local designers had taken over and made really cool. And we had a great stay there. We got free lobsters from the neighbor. We got free mussels from the local shoreman, and it was an awesome stay. And we did not mind being in the house because we could go take a hike. We could go to the shore, and then in the evenings we were in this beautiful, awesome place. So maybe you just start by booking a cool place to stay and build out the rest of the vacation from there.
Yeah. And Airbnb it always makes me laugh. Like when you go and you click through, like, explore extreme locales or whatever, and you'll see these amazing places for like $17 a night.
Yeah.
If you can get there, it's going to be amazing.
Well, it's very interesting because it is true that a lot of designers have started to put their talent into, we're going to buy a cheap property, we're going to renovate it, we're going to make it interesting. And yeah, it might be really off the beaten path, but the whole point of the stay is to be there. It's got a fire pit, it's got a pool, it's got secret hallways and rooms and things that you can explore. So it can often be a neat centerpiece, again, especially for a family stay.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Well, I think these are super useful tips, Kiernan.
I hope so. I hope that I'll say we would be very interested to know if you are booking last minute or you use any of these tips. Shoot us an email at outofofficepod@gmail.com and let us know where you end up going, how it goes. And if you've got any additional tips, we'll put them in the archive so that if we revisit this topic, we can bring them back and we'll credit you. outofofficepod@gmail.com.
outofofficepod@gmail.com. And now it's time for the last stop.
The last stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
All right, Ryan. Well, we're here on the last stop. This is the last segment of the show, the final segment of the show. That's why it's called the last stop. It's kind of there in the name. And it's my favorite segment. It's your favorite segment. It's popularly known for the people's... It's popularly known as the People's segment. We're a Big Tent podcast. All the people can come together, I hope, through most of the show, but especially here in the last stop. And that's because this is a place of sharing, of togetherness. It's where you and I each bring one thing each episode, and it could be anything. It could be an anecdote, a tip, a story about a piece of gear. Could be a story about an interaction we had, maybe with a charming local. It could be a magazine article. It could be just an Instagram post. It could be anything, but not anything willy-nilly. It has to meet one criterion. It must inspire the spirit of wanderlust within us, even during the work-a-day week. And it is feeling real work-a-day this week, Ryan. So I'm going to ask you, as I ask you every episode, do you have a last stop this week?
I do, Kiernan. Did you follow the Airbnb announcement last week?
Ooh, no news. You're breaking news.
I'm breaking news.
No, tell me.
Airbnb has announced one of the biggest updates to the service in years, completely revamping their experiences and services features. So now you're going to be able to go on to Airbnb after you've booked your house, and book personal chefs, photography, massages, spa treatments, personal trainers, hair, makeup, nails, prepared meals, catering, etc. And then they're also building out the experiences to be, because often it'll be sort of generic. You get these kind of generic tour guides, etc. They are going deep into vetted tour guides, locals, all around cultural experiences, dining experiences, wildlife experiences, shopping experiences, and beauty experiences. So I'm super excited for this because basically you're going to be able to book your house. There's going to be multiple days in a calendar. And then from that calendar on the app, you can book experiences right there. So that's super cool. I'm excited about it. I've used AirBNB Experiences a lot in my travels to do things from book cars to book tours. And I'm excited to see the new features.
Yeah, this is part of their expanding move into experiences. This is Airbnb has been working on this for 6-8 years now.
Yeah.
And it kind of started as this, tab off to the side. You were there primarily for the residences, but they were building out this program. And this feels like the natural evolution to try to tie it directly. And I like that it's still kind of leading with the booking the place and then matching experiences that keep it local to it. And it's interesting that they can come right into the house.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool thing. I wish they'd added laundry would be the one thing I'd be adding, laundry and dry cleaning service. So I'll reach out to the CEO, Brian, and let him know what's up. But
it would be interesting to try to get somebody from Airbnb on, because I'll say that I think that the one danger zone here is, well, I guess I'll just ask, because you've done more of these experiences. I'm always a little wary of booking. I don't know that Airbnb has the vetting process that is up to my standard. So have you had consistently good experiences?
Total mixed bag.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they're trying to address here by going more local, curating better. But I found cool experiences and I found generic experiences. So it's been a mix. But then, the competitors like Vrbo and some of the other folks out there, they just don't have enough users where I feel like there's enough comments or reviews where I feel like I even know what I'm getting. So Airbnb is just a lot of travelers. And so hopefully they'll be able to, help us discover really cool personal small tours.
I know this is silly to even say, because I would never have the time to do this because, I've got the 2 kids, I've got the day job, I've got the podcast. But
still only the 2 kids?
I still only the 2 kids. Right. Thanks for checking in. And I have, off the publication of Secret Boston, had a few people reach out to me on social media and by email to ask whether I would give them tours based on the book. And I actually, I love giving tours. I've done it a number of times. I know it's something that you've said you've actually aspired to do at some point in your life.
Absolutely.
And it's really fun and invigorating. It makes you appreciate where you are, to take tourists and even locals, help them discover new things. And I would be fascinated, if this sort of marketplace takes off, maybe someday in retirement, I could do my Kiernan's Secret Boston tours bookable through Airbnb.
Some of my most memorable tours have been like retired folks who just like twice a week walk 3 people around town. For sure.
I've had that same thing. And that's why I hope that the vetting can get there. So it's not a mixed bag. It's consistently good. I know this is where like a Rick Steves guide has helped me hugely, because he will put in individuals' names who he has vetted. I mean, I remember when Catherine and I were in Slovenia, we were, on this international network, phone crackling, and I was calling a local beekeeper who gives tours of their beekeeping operation in the middle of the mountains. It was incredibly hard to find. We were super lost. And then we showed up an hour later. They still opened it up and took us through. And it was one of the best experiences we had in the country. And that's because Rick Steves had that editorial process to make sure it was great. So that if Airbnb is listening, that's the watch out, I would say.
Yeah. And they're debuting this in 650 cities. So, that's a lot, but for a company like Airbnb, it does seem like a doable amount to kind of curate that many cities. So it'll be interesting to see how they pull it off. Kieran, it looks like you brought a very short last stop.
I do have a last stop this week. It's not that short. I just, I was encyclopedic in the outline. All right. Let's not show behind the curtain too much. So this was fascinating to me because, I spend a lot of time trying to find obscure things to visit. That was part of putting together my book, Secret Boston. And because I love that Secret series, which finds real obscure stuff. And Atlas Obscura is a favorite. I know you like the Accidentally Wes Anderson. That's kind of a cool take on the same thing. And I discovered this one. I was just browsing the internet and happened to find this library. It is closed to the public. It's a private library, but a couple of travelers have been allowed in to visit. And I couldn't believe I hadn't heard of it because it's in Ridgefield, Connecticut, which is about an hour from my hometown. And it's called the Walker Library of the History of Human Imagination. And it is attached to the large home of a billionaire whose name is Jay Walker. And Jay Walker, who started Priceline. Okay, so that's
not like the whiskey guy, Johnny Walker.
Not Johnny Walker, Jay Walker.
Yeah.
And Jay Walker, like somebody who walks across the street. I didn't even think of that. J.S. Walker, he founded Priceline and has had a great business track record since then, has a fortune, and he invested in building this truly extraordinary private library / museum of the human imagination. And it really seems to be like a curiosity cabinet where he's gotten all of these cool, crazy historic artifacts. And, now that we've had Rick Steves on a few times, to the point where, the godfather of this podcast, he feels like a regular guest, a member of the Out of Office family at this point. I'm kind of needing a new quest for the podcast. Now I'm thinking maybe a visit to the Walker Library of the History of Human Imagination is it. I mean, it doesn't have the ring of the quest of Rick Steves, the quest for the Walker Library of the History of Human Imagination. But let me tell you some of the stuff that's here. You're going to get why I want to go here. First of all, the architecture itself inspired by M.C. Escher. So it's got all these crazy walkways and stairways, and you kind of look up and it's this beautiful glass and old wood. I mean, it looks like a historic library, even though it was built just in the past 20 years. And he's got an original Sputnik satellite. It was like the backup to the satellite that actually went up. He's got a full Stegosaurus leg, an 1890 Edison sound machine that plays those wax cylinders. He's got historic books. There's an atlas that shows the sun as the center of the universe, not the earth. It's one of the first maps from 1699 in this atlas to show that. He's got a 1667 bill of mortality from England that is basically the death toll from the Great Plague. I mean, I feel like this is like the closest thing to a Kiernan candy store that's out there. And it's an hour from my hometown where my mom is.
What a bizarre, it's something like Willy Wonka sort of esque.
I think it really has that feel. And so, just for the sake, I'll throw up, I haven't been yet, but there's been a Wired article out about it and a couple scattered articles, but it's really not a very well-known destination. I don't know whether he's opening to people coming in and visiting, but I'll report here whether I can get in.
This is going to end with, Charlie having eaten the gobstopper and him going, "You get nothing."
I think it's going to be great. I mean, he's got all these awesome books and historic artifacts, surgery kits, glass eyes. I mean, you're right. It's very Willy Wonky. It's Kiernan bait. So we'll see the history of human imagination ready to be explored at the Walker Library. And I'm going to reach out.
I can't wait. And next week, you and I are going to be ready when those plane doors open, smiling, no hands on faces, as we look into Paris.
I mean, if we shove each other in the face, it's a joke. It's a joke. Another tip I didn't get in, by the way, is go stay at a 21C hotel. Those are often in sort of not as, we're not sponsored or anything. I just think that hotel's cool enough, and they're in like kind of off the beaten path cities that you could build a whole destination, stay at a 21C hotel, and then explore St. Louis. Until then. I'm Ryan Davis. And I'm Kiernan Schmidt. And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast. The seat taken. Why are you laughing? It was a great experience. No, I just happened to like it.